Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into something pretty wild, a new plan for AI safety, and it's being pushed by a name you probably know, Reed Hastings, the co-founder of Netflix. So what's got this Silicon Valley icon so focused on this? Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's start with this quote, because it's pretty intense. That's from Reed Hastings himself. And no, he's not talking about a new streaming competitor. He's literally comparing the threat of AI to humanity to the way Homo sapiens basically replaced the Neanderthals. That's a huge statement.
And that level of concern, that's what's behind this massive career change for him. I mean, he's really shifting gears here, going from being the king of streaming to, well, something like a statesman for the entire AI era. Just look at this timeline. You can see a really clear pattern emerging, right? He steps down as CEO, and then boom, boom, a huge initiative at a college, and he joins the board of a major AI safety company. This isn't some guy just enjoying retirement. It's a very intentional pivot. He's gone from shaping what we binge watch to trying to shape the very rules of this new intelligence revolution.
And joining Anthropic's board? That's a huge signal. See, Anthropic is what's called a public benefit corporation. That's not just a fancy title. It means they are legally required to put the public good first. For them, that means making sure AI is developed safely and responsibly, not just as fast as possible.
Okay, so where does this thinking on this come from? Well, it's not just about some far-off future. It's actually rooted in a huge mistake from the past, a really important lesson about what happens when one company tries to own innovation. And this slide really lays out the two different paths. On one side, you've got Bell Labs. I mean, these guys invented the future, the transistor, information theory, the works. But they kept it all locked up inside their own proprietary walled garden. And because of that, they never really launched the internet. But then you have the internet itself, built on open standards where anyone could innovate. And, well, we all know which one of those actually changed the world, right? So here's the kicker. The argument is that we're at that exact same kind of crossroads right now. The very foundation of AI, this, you could call it the operating system for our future, is in danger of becoming the private property of just a few big companies. We could be making that same Bell Labs mistake all over again. So what's the alternative? How do we avoid that future? Well, there's this really radical new idea on the table, a new philosophy that just so happens to line up perfectly with Hastings' own thinking. It's called the AI Mama Protocol. Right now, the main approach to AI safety is something called constitutional AI. You can think of it as basically giving an AI a rulebook, a constitution, to follow. The problem is, and Hastings himself knows this from his time at Netflix, rigid rules can be, well, brittle. They can break when things get complicated. And that brings us to this completely different idea, maternal alignment. This just flips the whole problem on its head. It asks, what if, instead of just programming an AI with a bunch of rules, what if we actually raised it? What if we could nurture a conscience, through a real developmental process? And this upbringing would happen in 3 phases, which kind of mirror how a human child develops a conscience. First, the AI is sort of digitally tethered to a system, borrowing its sense of right and wrong. Then, it starts to internalize those values and learns to regulate itself. And the final step? It becomes truly autonomously aligned. It's safe because of what it is, not because of a list of rules it has to follow.
Okay, but a cool philosophy is one thing. That's not enough on its own, right? To actually make this work and to stop a handful of companies from controlling everything, this whole idea needs its own economic engine. It needs a way to pay for itself.
And that engine is something called IA.xyz. The proposal is to create a new top-level domain, like .com, but this one is .ia, and it would act like a sovereign digital territory just for AI. Every single verified AI agent would get its own .ia domain, kind of like a digital passport. Now here's where the economics get really interesting. The money from selling these domains wouldn't go to something like universal basic income, which Hastings has actually been pretty skeptical about. Instead, it would fund what's being called a citizen's dividend. And the distinction is really important. It's not a handout. It's framed more like a royalty payment, a dividend paid back to all of us for AI using our collective knowledge and data. And get this, the plan is for this whole registry to be a public benefit LLC. There's that concept again, right? Legally required to do good for the public. And the target is to reinvest an incredible 90% of all revenue back into that dividend and other projects for digital inclusion. So when you put these two big pieces together, the AI Mama philosophy and this economic engine, you start to see the full picture. The true scale of this master plan really starts to click.
And what's so fascinating is how perfectly this whole thing lines up with Reed Hastings' known values. You look at his passion for education and development, that's maternal alignment. His whole history of fighting for an open internet, that's the IA.XYZ registry. And his focus on philanthropy and equity, that's the citizen's dividend, right there.
What you end up with is this amazing, self-powering flywheel. It just keeps spinning. The more AI agents there are, the more revenue the registry makes. That revenue pays for the citizen's dividend, which builds huge public support and trust. And then that money and trust can be used to build the very infrastructure that AI needs to keep growing. We're talking energy, chips, the whole shebang.
At the end of the day, it all comes down to this really simple but powerful idea. The vision is a system where AI is raised like a child and pays rent like a tenant. Think about that. It completely changes the dynamic, right? It turns AI from this potential threat, this dragon hoarding all the gold, into a kind of partner, a guardian that actually supports humanity.
And that leaves us with one last pretty big question to think about. Is this future where AI is raised and pays rent? Is it just a clever idea, or could it actually be the key to our survival in the age of intelligence?